Watcher's Tale.
Watchers has been on the trail to see if any of these beings fit the criteria for the biblical Nephilim. That would mean that their origin might be somewhere in the Middle East, the theory being that they're simply hybrid beings. Richard Shaw happened to meet a man who said he owned an elongated skull. It was huge. Richard was used to seeing such skulls from Peru. Since this specimen had been in the US for decades, he asked if they could take DNA samples from it. The man agreed if L.A. would conceal his identity. The next step was for them to travel to Oregon, where the skull was located. They met up with Mondo Gonzales with a master's degree in archaeology and drove for the next 4 hours to a remote location. They couldn't believe what they saw.
You know, Lee, what's cool about all this is that we've had, as you mentioned, the difficulty of trying to get permits with Peru. And to be able to come here to Ashland to see these two skulls, especially side by side, it's exciting because in the collection we have this skull, which, as you mentioned, we don't really know much about. And then we also have a full skeleton with this human skull. And so to put them here side by side is very neat and illustrative of what we're seeing is the differences. One of the things that's exciting as well is you look at the brow line and you see it goes straight back, and versus here, it still is going straight up.
In other words, there's a forehead here that we can see, and here there is no forehead, it's just straight back.
And even looking at the length of the skull heading backwards is just different. It's just incredible.
And also where the zygomatic arch is here, we see that there's a definite difference between the skulls. Also look at the mandible and how robust our sample from Peru is compared to the human skull. Now, I'm not sure, this might be a male skull. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like it, but I could be wrong. But this skull here has a very robust mandible, and the zygomatic arch is different than the human skull. So we start, piecing all these differences together, and it's in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I'm going to throw my chips down right now, that what we're looking at is something which has been genetically altered.
Well, one of the goals, L.A., that we really need to do is we need to get a sample of this. That's kind of the goal that we've been working on for a while now, especially with the Peruvian connection and seeing the roadblocks here. But now, here we have an opportunity to do exactly what we've been wanting to do.
And so how are we going to go about that?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to get all garbed up. We're going to get ready. We're going to make sure that our area is non-contaminated, and we're going to come in through the bottom, find a spot of the skull where it's very thick. We're going to drill through, we're going to take that away, and then we're going to get inside with a separate part so that we can make sure, again, no contamination for any of it, so that when we take several different samples from different areas, we're going to have an opportunity to take a tooth, which will be nice, so that when we send it over to the DNA lab, they will have everything they need.
Fantastic.
This is going to be really neat.
The markings on the skull, presumably inscribed by a museum decades ago, show the origins of a mining town, La Oroya, Peru. According to Time, La Oroya is one of the world's most polluted places, its mining operations stretching back to the 1920s. If there had been no inscription on the forehead, its origin would have been a mystery, but it does have similar characteristics to other skulls from Ica and Paracas, Peru.
So what we're doing is we're making a starter hole into the skull. And what this will do, it will give us a fresh area then to drill in. So I'm going to take some air. I'm going to blow this out. And now we're going to take the fresh sample.
The surface of the skull had been shellacked many years ago. The real DNA had to be taken from below the surface. Compressed air was used to blast off the remnant of the coating once the surface had been penetrated. A conical boring bit and a miniature drill proved to be the most effective to create powder. Taken from inside the bone, the powder is the least contaminated and hasn't been touched by human hands. The powder is collected on clean sheets of paper, which is folded and put into fresh envelopes and sealed. When doing DNA testing, care has to be taken to keep all the samples as uncontaminated as possible.
I like it. Why don't you try the pliers? Oh, excellent.
The team now had several samples of powder in various parts, as well as a tooth in good condition. All the envelopes were then brought to a FedEx location and mailed out immediately from Oregon to one of the genetics labs, Lakehead University in Canada. Lakehead specializes in paleo DNA, or ancient samples, and was the only lab that would allow us to use their name in this film. We also retained hair samples from the baby mummy, which we showed being unwrapped in Watchers 8.
Yes, this is baby hair. This is, oh my gosh.
Hair samples from the baby, as well as mummy wrappings, were sent to various labs to determine DNA and carbon-14 dating.